I'm Lauren Griesmeyer. I'm the Orders and Beaker and Willow PD for Nordic Consulting Partners. I'm here today with Aaron Herzog,
Hello.
who's one of my Beaker consultants. I'll let Aaron go ahead and tell you a little bit about himself.
Sure. I'm, like Lauren said, a Beaker consultant for Nordic. I've been in the Beaker world since early 2009. I worked at Epic on some various projects, implementation, QA, a little bit of development. I've probably worked directly with 6 customers at this point and advised probably half a dozen more.
What percentage of the Beaker world do you think that is for current customer count? Just a guess.
For current customer count, maybe a quarter. I'd say between like super big range, but like 12 to like 25%. I think last count I heard there's like 40-ish customers live.
Okay.
So if I've touched 12, that's about a quarter.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So Beaker is broken into CP and AP.
Mm-hmm.
And AP kind of seems to be a new and kind of hot add-on of add-ons. What has been a lot of the customers' hesitations with installing AP until this past version?
I think a lot of it has been, it's new. Mm-hmm. No one ever wants to be the first customer to take something.
They call it bleeding edge for a reason.
Yes. So a lot of the customers that I've talked to have been like, we want to see how XYZ customers have used the software after they've been live for 2 or 3 years. So I think we're at that point now where we have that sort of critical mass of people who are using AP, so customers are getting more comfortable with it. I think at the same time that, the initial releases had some, I don't want to call it pieces missing, but, some functionality gaps for sure.
I think with any software system, when you initially deploy it, it's going to have some functionality gaps. I think that's kind of the nature of software development. So definitely early versions of AP worked really well for like the smaller sites that, sort of had a one-stop shop for AP, and now they've expanded where like multi-site AP, where you're processing the specimens at one site, then sending them to a pathology group based somewhere else works a lot better now. So I think those pieces, as well as AP and CP sort of coming together. Mm-hmm. In earlier versions, they were really their own distinct workflows, and in the current version, they've modified that, so it's really a seamless workflow between the two modules, if you'll call them that. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about billing, because I know that's kind of a hot topic.
Always is.
When you talk about Epic just in general, but I know that it's been one area where a lot of times customers will struggle, just kind of due to the fact that Beaker tends to be an add-on and it's an integrated system. And so there are some changes that have to happen to an existing system in order to make your billing workflows work correctly. Mm-hmm. So just to start off, I'd like to hear your opinion of some of the areas that you've seen be the biggest struggles for customers. And we'll kind of start there, and I'm sure I'll have more questions as we go along.
Yep. The areas that tend to struggle the most are the most complicated workflows, as that probably makes sense. AP, for example, you have a mix of the charges for performing the actual testing, and you have professional charges as well.
Sure.
And sometimes those need to go to hospital billing versus professional billing, so sort of routing those charges appropriately to the applications can get tricky, especially coming from a third-party LIS. We expect the third party to sort of tell us what this charge is and where it should go.
Sure.
Since Epic in general has the charge router, Beaker expects a lot of that routing to be done by the billing applications.
So when you're talking about changing the billing to suit Beaker, is it primarily charge router work and some changing of your queues, or kind of where are those big points that you end up touching what's already been set up for billing?
Most of it is definitely in the router. The PBHB example, or professional and hospital billing, is the best. You have outpatient labs and you have hospital labs. You want your outpatient labs to go to professional billing. You want your hospital labs to go to hospital billing. So typically what customers will do there is they'll put actually both charges on the Beaker test record, and then have the router delete one of them.
Oh.
And you can get into very complicated scenarios where if you have multiple service areas and your hospital lab is performing reference work for your clinic lab, that you actually need to do some charge cloning and then bill yourself across service areas. Sure. It can get really complicated. So testing those workflows is paramount.
And really understanding the inner workings of both systems can be pretty
tricky.
Pretty tricky,
sure.
Yeah. So one of the things that just kind of occurred to me, my background being more on the inpatient side, is that your EAP build is probably being highly affected as well when you install Beaker. So what are some of the changes that have to happen at that integration point?
Sure. So the EAP, the Epic procedure record actually links to a Beaker test record, and a lot of your build that lives on the EAP transitions to the test record. So you no longer put charges on there.
That was what triggered it, as I was thinking, oh gosh, usually it's the order that you've got the billing stuff living on.
Yep.
Okay.
So a lot of it transitions there. I mean, EAP is still very important. It's what the physicians see during order entry, or the clinicians, depending on who's placing orders. So you still need to maintain that well, but you're maintaining sort of a second set of files now that link to the EAPs.
So then I have a question about maintenance. As far as, let's say we've got a customer that acquires another hospital, and now they've maybe are making some changes to the way that their order sets are being deployed.
Sure.
Or they have additional orders that they need to add to the system. What kind of maintenance effects do you see when you have things like updates on order sets or updates within the EAP?
A lot of it doesn't change.
For Beaker?
For Beaker. A lot of the Beaker build lives in these records outside of EAP. What gets sort of tricky is the ownership of EAP.
Okay.
Like some organizations choose to give the lab EAPs directly to the Beaker support team. Okay. Some choose to keep all of EAP with orders or whatever application owns EAP. So there needs to be, in those situations, there needs to be a lot of like close work and handoff.
Cross communication.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you see that handoff happening most successfully?
I think
organizations that you've seen do it the best.
It works the best when Beaker owns their own EAPs.
Okay.
Because a lot of the times, if they don't, you're asking a team to build something that they really don't understand the reasoning behind.
Sure,
so you're like,
downstream effects.
Yeah. I need the shell record, please build it for me so I can do my build. Okay. And that doesn't tend to work the best. To say it politically.
Be politically correct.
Yes.
And then how about the billing piece? How does that typically work, that sharing of tasks?
That typically is shared then between Beaker and the respective billing and charge router teams. It's sort of the orders team at that point gets removed because the charges won't live directly on the EAPs any longer. They'll live on the Beaker test records.
I'll bet they're pretty stoked to get removed out
of the
chain.
They are very stoked about that, yeah.